Have you ever worried that your mystery novel will be dead on arrival? That despite pouring months or years of your precious time into a book, readers may ultimately find it unsurprising, unexciting, or even dumb? In this video, we're going to go over 4 common mistakes that writers make when constructing their mysteries. We're going to talk about why writers make these mistakes and the very simple, very practical ways that you can avoid them so that your mystery winds up solid and satisfying. Hi, I'm Jane Kalmus, and welcome back to another Fiction Technician. Let's get right into the action by talking about mystery mistake number 1, which is hiding the villain too well. In the episode of Remington Steele titled Coffee, Tea, or Steel, our sleuths, Laura and Steele, go undercover to try and find out who tried to smuggle a dead body in the luggage compartment of a luxury airliner. Laura is posing as a stewardess so that she can investigate the staff, and Steele is a passenger so that he can mingle with the movers and shakers who fly on this deluxe airline. They finally learn who the villain is, and I'm just going to show you the clip of that revelation along with a dramatization of my reaction.
That guy was an SEC investigator on the trail of a massive Wall Street investment scam.
And the company he was investigating, Holder Investments, owned by Barry Holder.
He's the passenger who was having the affair with Wanda. I knew there was something strange going on here.
Now, that is not the reaction you want your reader to have to your big reveal. Part of the problem is that the final clues were assembled during these support characters' off-camera efforts. Final clues should always be discovered in scene. But frankly, the biggest problem is something far more fundamental, which is that the villain simply isn't memorable. And it's easy to see how writers can make this exact same mistake. Often, when writing a mystery, you can have a horror of drawing too much attention to the villain. But here's the thing, you must draw attention to him. You don't have to draw suspicion to the villain, but you must draw attention. That's exactly what the writers in this episode didn't do. In this entire episode, he only has one scene where he has more than a single line. This one, where he tries to get Steele posing as a passenger to sign up for his investment scam. And here is the problem with this scene. All the humor, all the conflict in this scene is between Laura and Steele. She's upset that her cover ID has her stuck in a subservient position, and he's milking it for all it's worth. So this is typical Laura and Steele shtick, and the writers should have skipped it for once in favor of some humor or some conflict or something dealing with the villain. Perhaps he could have pressed Steele to invest throughout the flight while Steele increasingly seeks to distance himself to avoid blowing his cover. Or perhaps Steele could have pressed him for specifics, which he suddenly becomes reluctant to discuss. Maybe the villain could even have a brief altercation with another passenger who isn't happy about the returns on his investment. He could have done almost anything, but it should have been something that cemented him in my mind as a character, if not necessarily a suspect. The second problem I see in mysteries is what I call the red herring loop. And we see one of these in the same episode of Remington Steele. Now, if you've been around this channel for a while, you know that my preferred term for red herrings is suspect subplot. And let's talk about how one usually looks. First, the sleuth has a reason to get interested in a particular suspect. Maybe that suspect is behaving strangely, or maybe the sleuth has just learned that the suspect has a really solid motive. They begin investigating, collecting clues about the suspect, and at the end of the subplot, they have a reason for dismissing that suspect from suspicion. Most frequently, this reason is that they've learned that the suspect does indeed have a secret, but it's not the murder. That's what happens in this episode, where the sleuths begin investigating Captain McBride, who's acting super creepy, and learn his secret. He is using his plane to import pastrami from New York to Honolulu without paying taxes. Sneaky? Yeah. Clever? Yeah. And not the murder. But here is what this plot lacks: a hook in to the main plot. A hook in is nothing more than a clue discovered during one plot that advances one of the other plots. In a mystery novel, you often have 5 or 6 different suspect subplots going. Each of them can hook into either the main plot or one of the other suspect subplots. And this is often the thing that gives a mystery the wonderful feeling of an interconnected puzzle of secrets and lies. So how how would a Hookin look in this plot? Well, let's say that when the sleuths confront the captain and learn his secret, he tells them that he had a hard time getting his last shipment of pastrami on board because the hangar in which he had stored it was locked until just before the plane was scheduled for takeoff. Now we know that something strange was going on in that hangar. Perhaps the murder was even committed there, and our sleuths can look there for evidence that might tie the villain to the crime. That means that while we've taken a break from the main investigation by pursuing this line of inquiry, when we return to it, we're further along than we were before. But the captain's subplot just doesn't have any Hookins, and so our sleuths are dumped back into the main plot at the exact same point that they left it. That's why I call this mistake the red herring loop, and maybe complaining about it makes me sound like a bit of a fusspot. I mean, would most readers even notice this issue? This suspect's subplot doesn't even have a Hookin. On a conscious level, no, they won't notice. But on an unconscious level, mystery readers are looking for that wonderful feeling of an interconnected web of secrets, with your sleuth as a clever spider crawling along each strand, shining her flashlight into every dark corner. It's something that they will miss if it's not there, and anyway, creating Hookins is easy. You just make sure that some of your clues drop while you're investigating different characters. If you like this video and you feel like it's giving you value, can you please take just a second to smash the like button? It means so much to me to reach new writers, and every time one of you gives my videos a like, well, honestly, that helps. And then let's talk about mystery mistake number 3, the dumb cover-up. In an episode of Monk called Mr. Monk and the Girl Who Cried Wolf, Monk's assistant, Sharona, is terrified when a badly injured man approaches her in an underground parking garage. But when she brings Monk back to this spot, not only is the man gone, but there's no evidence he was ever there. Sharona continues to have encounters with this man, but no one else ever sees him, and slowly she's convinced that she must be going crazy. It turns out that Sharona is taking a writing class at the local college in which she submitted a mystery where the villain uses a specific drug to induce a heart attack. Her writing teacher liked this idea so much that she and her boyfriend used it to kill the teacher's husband. But they were scared that Sharona would catch on to what they were doing, so they terrorized her to preemptively discredit her, to make both Sharona and the police think that her judgment couldn't be trusted.
There's somebody outside the window.
Where? And here is my problem with this plot. By pursuing Sharona in this manner, the villains have dramatically increased their chances of getting caught. Without their campaign against her, the likelihood of being caught for this murder was almost nil. First, if Sharona learned that her writing teacher's husband died of a heart attack, is her first thought really going to be that the teacher used the plot from her story to induce that attack? Secondly, even if Sharona got suspicious, can she really convince the police to investigate based on this story? The teacher might have simply committed the murder, taken a couple of weeks off work for bereavement time, and by the time Sharona even learns how the husband died, the body's cremated. Problem solved. But by terrorizing Sharona, these villains were putting themselves in a position where they could have very easily been caught. All they ever need is for just one more person to see the injured man, and the jig is up. The way to fix a dumb cover-up is easy. You just have to bring this bar up to the level of this bar, or at least fairly close. If Sharona was in a better position to suspect and accuse her writing teacher, if, say, they were coworkers or cousins or neighbors, well, this bar would get a lot higher. If Sharona had reason to suspect a bad relationship between the villain and her husband, the bar would get higher still. Get this bar high enough and the need for a cover-up becomes a lot more real. And the last problem I want to talk about in mystery novels is poor scene work. For this one, we're going to have to go back to Remington Steele. In an episode called Premium Steele, Laura is investigating a life insurance fraud scheme, which takes her to the bustling Weil mortuary. There, she encounters brisk business, but a cool reception. Undaunted, she returns that night with Mr. Steele, only to discover that the entire operation has closed up shop. And this is the entire scene. I don't know if I can express to you how much this offends my artistic sensibilities. You should never be wasting your audience's time in this way. But again, it's easy to see how writers can make this mistake because the scene does serve the purpose of getting the sleuths the next clue. They do learn that the proprietors of Weil Mortuary are spooked, and the writers felt like that was enough and they could go ahead and proceed to the next scene. It's Not enough though. In every scene, your character should be making decisions that matter. They should be thinking on their feet, taking chances, and ideally getting deeper into the soup. If you want to make sure that every one of your scenes is exciting, check out this video next, in which we go over my 6 scene planning questions and examine why the answer to "does my character get what they want" should never be simply yes or no.